XDuce for our webinar today. My name is Kushbu. I'm the Client Success Manager at XDuce. I've been coordinating this webinar, reaching out to you, and we're excited to present this demo to you today on Oracle's PBCS. Before we begin, this is today's agenda. We'll do a quick opening intro, then we'll get into the demo. Your lines are muted. And please use the chat feature throughout the demo to send in your questions. We'll have a Q&A at the end, and we'll get to your questions during that time. I'll pass on to Matt. He is our VP of Sales.
Thank you, Kushbu. Everybody, thanks for joining today. We're excited to have the opportunity to present to you Oracle's Planning and Budgeting Cloud. Just to give you a quick overview of XDuce, many of you may have worked with us in the past, and some may be new to working with us or even just exploring what's out there. But to give you a history of XDuce, we were founded in 2006, and our Center of Excellence is located in Edison, New Jersey. We have offices in your local areas across the United States, from Plano, Texas, to San Francisco, to Washington, D.C., and also some delivery centers over in India. We're going to be opening our third delivery center in India over the next month or two. Our core strengths really involve all the different aspects of IT. But for our main focus, we offer consulting services in regards to Oracle's on-premise and cloud applications. Everything's going to the cloud nowadays, so our goal is to get out there and educate clients on what options, what the options look like, what the type of the technology that are available, and also to give you an assessment and roadmap the journey to these cloud products by delivering a total cost of ownership and ROI calculation. So if you're on any kind of old legacy products that are on premise, we can give you a really good, clear understanding of what it would take to get to the cloud. Some just recognitions and certifications that we have. We're listed on the Inc. 5000. We're one of the 10,000 small business entrepreneurs out of the Goldman Sachs program. And we are an Oracle Platinum Partner, which is the highest level of certification you can receive from Oracle. So with that, I would love to turn this over to Shaker, our EPM practice lead, who's going to take you today through the live demo of Oracle's Planning and Budgeting Cloud service. So thank you guys so much. Sit back and relax and enjoy the demo.
Thank you very much, Matt. Hello, everybody. My name is Shaker. In XDuce, I am the principal consultant for PBCS, that's Planning Budgeting Cloud Solution, Cloud Services rather. PBCS is a cloud-based planning, budgeting, forecasting, and management reporting application. And in this webinar, we are going to demonstrate one of the key features of PBCS, that's collaborative and instant planning and budgeting process. This presentation is based on a case study of a company who are into manufacturing beverages and other food products and even marketing them. They have a very big marketing, I would say, organization. Before we get to the product, I would just like to introduce what the status was. Before the implementation of PBCS, the annual budgeting and the quarterly forecasting and the reporting environment was totally Excel-based. Individual business divisions, product managers, departments, the HR, admin, they all submitted their budget numbers to the corporate P&B controller on Excel sheets for consolidation, review, changes, modifications, etc. Okay, and this was a very lengthy process, consuming considerable man hours involving multiple meetings, conference calls, innumerable emails, and Excel spreadsheets. Moreover, data quality was insufficient on account of disparity and mismatches, what we call multiple version of truth. Now we shall see how PBCS could change all this into a collaborative and instant P&B process. Before we start to take a look at the solution, I would like to quickly take you through the PBCS solution architecture, as you can see in the screen now. and then the critical data sets. These two are important for planning and budgeting application. So far as the architecture is concerned, okay, we have what we call 3 environments. One is the transaction system that each company might be having. That consists of the general ledger system. That's one of the main data source for planning, budgeting, reporting, analysis, etc. And then we could also have non-GL data, supplementary, I would say, ledgers, fixed assets, registers, HR data, etc. These data are used for planning and budgeting. And then we also may have a data warehouse or a data mart as source for planning. Apart from this, we also have user input data, because for the purpose of planning and budgeting, users are required to input or enter into the system the planning drivers, assumptions, and rates, etc. These are used for the purpose of forecasting and coming out with the numbers. And then we have PBCS application. Okay, the PBCS application is linked to the transaction system through an ETL process called the FDMEE, and data is imported from the transaction system into the PBCS application to the extent that is required for the purpose of planning, budgeting, and management reporting. And then user also input data that we will see now in the demo, and through a web form, or they can simply upload the data to a standard formatted Excel sheets. This system is seamlessly interfaced with the Excel sheet. So once the transaction system transaction data come in, and the input data users put the data into the system, that means they have entered the assumptions and the drivers. The PBCS application generates the annual plan, long-term plan, forecasts, and rolling forecasts. And then you have a reporting environment, consists of 3 sets. One is the FR, I would say, application, where we can do normally static and predefined reports used for our senior managers and people who would like to see predefined reports where the formats, the look and feel are standard. Then we also have a Smart View. Smart View is the I would say, a tool that we use to connect to Excel, and this is it's an extremely powerful tool, and for the purpose of ad hoc analysis, slicing, dicing, and data validation, etc. And then the current PBCS version also has a built-in dashboard, I would say, facility, and we can generate some very nice dashboards. Okay, and the critical data sets, as we have defined what we call critical data sets that's required for planning and budgeting. That's the transaction data, as we just spoke of, the user input values, and the output data. These 3 data sets comprise the core data required for planning and budgeting. Now I will move to the product from here. Okay, this is the launch screen.
Okay,
now in this
presentation,
Shaker. Yeah.
We just we're not seeing that, so hold on one sec.
So this is the planning and budgeting application, what we call the pilot screen through which we log into the system. Okay, we will go into the system, but before we go in, I would just like to mention here that this demo is based on what we are going to recreate is a collaborative planning process where we start with where the actual data that is required for the purpose of generating the budget that has already been imported from the transaction system to the ETL process, and the primary numbers have been put into the system. Here the data can be, in the planning process, data is entered by, I would say, multiple budget holders. This maybe the sales team might enter the sales budget, the product managers might enter the costs, the HR managers might put in the HR costs. These, I would say, the team of people who enter budget into the system or numbers into the system, we term them as budget holders. Once the budget holders submit their data, the system automatically sends an email to the controller that these numbers have come in, And then now you can start looking at the numbers and then collaboratively work with these budget holders to finalize the numbers. So we have a dashboard. The system has a dashboard rather. Once the controller receives the email, he gets into this dashboard, and then he can see what the current status is. So if you scroll down a little bit, what we can see here is what we have is three, I would say, multiple sets of data. So I have the spirit group, the NAB group, that is the non-alcoholic beverage, the beer group, and the food group. Now, the beer group, they have not submitted any numbers yet. The spirit groups, they have not yet done anything. They have not input the numbers. But the NAB group, they have submitted the numbers, and the email has come from the NAB group budget holders. So immediately, the controller can click on this and see what the status is. Like if you want to see, I would say, an overall number, okay, the total number, this is where the budget status is. Like for revenue, last year, the number was 5434, that's 54 million, and then it became 180. But this year, the budget is more or less same. There is no growth. And he would like to take a look at that and see why the numbers that are coming in is not growing. So you can just click on this, and then the system will drill down. And then it will give him the breakup of where the numbers are coming from. So if we see here, in FY17, we had only one product, that is the TDP water. And then there was an acquisition in FY18, and then other products were added, like tea was added, and CSD was added, and the water continued. And if you look at the budgeting trend, we see that the budget numbers from FY17 actual to the latest forecast for FY18, it is little less than what it was. And again, for water, it is going down from 5,000 to 5 million to 4 million. That means for the next year budget, the revenue from water that has been budgeted less than what it was last year. Whereas the tea has gone up, it has gone up substantially, and the CSD is more or less same as what it was, the other products. Now, at this point, the controller, this is where the collaborative planning process comes in. The controller can take a call and see why this 4119, whether he's okay with that number, or he would like to come out, tell the team to revise the numbers or suggest a number himself. This is what his expectations are. He can do that, but before going in, he would just like to check, okay, if my sales budget is 4 million, or actually it's 41 million, what is the advertisement and promotion budget, because it's linked. So the marketing and the product managers have actually budgeted that. We can simply go up and select and see what is the total A&P expense, and then when he refreshes that, you can see now the A&P expense, and here we find that the A&P expense, though it has increased for tea, for water it has come down. So with this information that the budget for the advertisement budget has come down, that's why there is a reduction in the revenue forecast. You can go back to the managers and then suggest a number. And for that purpose, you will come out of the dashboard and get it into the system. Just a moment. Here, the controller can log into the web forms through which the data came in and look at the numbers in much more granularity, and then he can decide how to manage it. So I'll go here to the data form. Okay, this is the form that users would use to submit their budget data. And this form is for the sales budget. Okay, on the first column, we have the total sale, the latest estimate for FY18. And in the second column, the users can enter a percentage growth, that what is the growth is expecting for, and then that whatever number has been entered as growth can also be manually adjusted. Okay, I mean, you can go and put a value and say, I would like to tweak it by maybe a few thousands or maybe round it off. So the option is you can enter a percentage, and then after the percentage growth is calculated, you can also adjust it. Now, if we scroll down to our data sets, the one that we are using for this demo, here we find that the green P, there is a growth percentage of 27%, but water, the percentage has been, and the growth percentage is less than what it was by almost 23%. So at this point, he has two options. He can enter here what is his expectation. Maybe he says that I would like to increase this by this number. Maybe I would like I'm expecting an increase by this number, or whatever number he thinks is the right number, or what his expectations are, and then submit this, and then the budget holder would, when he receives an email, and then he can open the form to see that the controller's expectation is I have to increase the value by, the sales by about 100 million. Okay. Now, he also has the options. He may not enter the data here. He can go and change this and say, I want only, maybe I'm happy only with 10% decrease. Okay. Once he does this, he has the option to change it, or he can suggest a number, and then if he saves, the budget gets recalculated. Okay, and then this is for the the sales part, the sales revenue growth part, and then the controller, when he submits the number, the A&P or the planning people, they may say that, okay, if we have to achieve this number, we need some additional budget for advertisement. So the person who is controlling that, the budget holder for that particular, I would say, the AdPro budget holder, he logs into the system, and just one second, I'll just go out of this. I have not saved it, but we can always save it later. Okay. He logs into the system here. And then here you can see that if we scroll down, and he can select what product that we are looking at. Today we are looking at all the products. He can select the product, because water, he can select water. Now, this is the budget for the expense budget for water. And here, if we look at the total A&P, advertisement and promotion cost, what we have here is the budget is these are Thai bahts. 40 baht per liter is the advertisement budget. And the advertisement budgets are of two types, ATL and BTL. ATL is general and BTL is very, very specific. So as per now, if he was to achieve that 10 million or 100 million, whatever is the increased number expected by the controller, and to achieve that number, and if he has to get an additional budget for a promotion, we can just put this number here, that I want another 50 baht per liter promotion, and save this. Now the entire budget is recalculated. Okay. So this way, collaboratively, without having to exchange too many emails and conference calls and telephone calls and even conference meetings, collaboratively we can generate the numbers. And once this number is finalized, once the product manager, the sales manager, and the budget controller has agreed on a number, that number can be promoted to the corporate office, or whoever is the person who is going to be consolidating those numbers, and that consolidated budget can now become the budget for that particular budgeting cycle. And then for forecasting and for, I would say, latest estimate, these numbers can be modified according to the forecasting cycle or rolling forecast cycle. Okay. This way, we can do collaborative planning and budgeting across the enterprise. Another important, I would say, feature here is the granularity. Okay. When we say granularity, we actually mean how detailed the budget is. But now, if you look at the application, okay, Hyperion PBCS, it is open. I mean, the budget holders or each company can decide how detailed the budget will be, how granular the budget will be, and by defining the dimensions. I'll just quickly go through the dimensions here. Okay, now if we look at a sales budget, typically a sales budget or a revenue budget would have these dimensions. But there could be a dimension for product. Okay, this is where we define the product hierarchy. And this product hierarchy can be interfaced to the transaction system so that the products as defined in the ERP system can be replicated either at level 0 or at an upper level in the system. I'll just take you through now we have a product hierarchy here. Now I have defined product brand and product group. Though in the ERP system, the products might be at a very low level, at an SKU level, but for the purpose of planning and budgeting, I may keep it at brand level, and data from the transaction system automatically gets aggregated to brand for comparisons, actual versus budget analysis, etc. So this way we can create an independent product, I would say, hierarchy in our PBCS system and link it to the product hierarchy defined in the transaction system. And other, I would say, dimensions that we use for the purpose of revenue is geography. Okay, like the products hierarchy tells us what we are going to sell. The geography dimension tells us where we are going to sell it. Okay, it could be like within Thailand, and then provinces, we go down to the region. You can go down up to the region level. Okay, this is where we want to budget by region. And you could even go down below regions as well. And then the product says what we are selling, geography says where we are selling, and then the channel channel is defined to, I would say, budget where we are selling or how we are selling. Okay, where, I'm sorry, is the geography dimension. So in channel, we have domestic, international, and we can even go down lower than that. Okay, I'll just show you here. I have all channels, and under that we have domestic, and then within domestics, we can even go down to next level, what is traditional sale, what is modern sale, and then what is cash van, and so on. Okay. And then there are other standard dimensions like versions, scenarios. Scenarios are various, I would say, budget data sets that we define in the system. Some of them are defined during the implementation, and the controller can add more scenarios. It's very easy to add a scenario and then look at the numbers for those scenarios. These are some of the standard scenarios that we define during the implementation. For example, I have actual budget, a top-down budget, the summary budget, and then forecast, and then latest estimate, monthly rolling forecasts. We could also add new dimensions like what is the business as usual BAU scenario or a catch-up scenario if the budget numbers are not as, the actual numbers are not as budgeted. What is it that we are going to do? How we are going to catch up? From an analysis, I would say for analysis, we have two types of analysis. We can use what-if analysis, like you can build scenarios, what happens if the price changes, what happens if I add new geography. And then you also can have root cause analysis, that once the actual data comes into the system, we do a variance analysis, and where there is a big variance or something that has not gone as per budget, we can also do a root cause analysis. Okay. And then we can keep on adding more dimensions. As I said, the entity dimension is the organization structure, and then you have version dimension. During the budgeting cycle, you could have multiple versions. So you could have version 1, version 2. Typically, we have some versions that we define at the start of the implementation, and then the controller can add more. For example, a user version is controlled by the budget holders. Then we have a CFO version and a CEO version, because the budget goes through CFO review and a CEO review, and then the final version. Okay. So we can create as many versions as we want. There are no limits. Okay. So from a product perspective, we can define the dimensions. We can set up the business rules, and the third one is set up the web forms, and the third one are user-defined, I would say, drivers. We will take a quick look at the drivers before we conclude this presentation. Just a moment. The drivers and assumptions are used for calculating the budget, and I will just quickly take you through a few drivers that we have defined for sales. And these are not, these are drivers that we have defined for an implementation, and you can add more drivers. You can, if you don't want some of them, you can delete them. I'll just and these drivers can be global assumptions, so that when you have multiple budget holders planning revenue, the assumptions and drivers and whatever we are using are standard across the enterprise, so that the budget numbers are the accuracy of the budget, and the numbers are, I would say, people have not used different logics for numbers and then they're not comparable. For example, we have the drivers that we have defined here are for the purpose of calculating costs for advertisement. Okay, you could have a percentage change. This will calculate the budget based on what was the prior period sale and what is the change expected. It could be a percentage of sale. It could be a cost per liter. It can extrapolate based on, suppose I have an actual data for 9 months and I am calculating for the next 3 months. I can use the extrapolation method to take the proportionate run rate for 9 months into 3 months. And for example, there are some specific drivers for say bonus or for incentive. We can say that yes, it is number of month salary, or it is based on a merit performance percentage. These are drivers that are user defined, and then these drivers can be we can attach a business rule to the driver and use it for the purpose of budgeting. And if we don't want to use the the drivers, we can simply input the data in the next column and say this is an entity adjustment. I don't want the drivers to calculate everything. Whatever data I put in here, this is the budget. So we have the option to use a driver, input data manually, or both. Okay. This way, we can have a very collaborative planning process across the enterprise. And lastly, I'll just go through one more slide just to highlight what is the advantage. Just as I said, it's a collaborative planning process, and it's not only, and we just don't generate an annual budget or maybe a quarterly forecast. Budgeting is an ongoing exercise. Budget control is an ongoing exercise. Okay, root cause analysis, variance analysis. Okay, these can be done these can be performed as an ongoing exercise. Okay, some companies have something like a weekly flash. Okay, and in some companies they take their weekly budget from sales team and feed it to the ERP for the purpose of production and shipment plan. And then we have, it also ensures a standard budget and planning process across the enterprise by defining standard drivers, standard assumptions, and standard what we called metadata or the granularity. It's very easy to implement. It doesn't require like transaction systems or other systems. It's a very short implementation period, 3 to 4 months, and then we are there. Normally, we start at the beginning of the quarter, and by the end of the quarter, before the next quarter begins, I would say the planning system or even the MIS system or the quarterly forecasting system should be in place. It's highly configurable. We can add a dimension, we can expand a dimension, we can, shrink the dimension according to business needs, and it can be deployed enterprise-wide because it's all on the cloud. Okay, this is the advantage. Okay, and if there are any questions, I will take that. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're just grabbing the questions from the online chat.
Okay, I have a question for you, Shekhar.
Yep.
So Tom is asking, how does the product fit into service industry?
Okay, this demo that we saw was for a manufacturing industry, a manufacturing, beverages. As I said, the application is highly configurable, and for service industries like telecom, banking, I would say even IT services, we can define those business rules that are used for calculating the budget and the costs. For example, in a telecom company, the customer is, I would say, the customer type and the various schemes that they have. Those are the planning drivers. We define that. For I would say, service industry like an IT company, we can do it by projects or maybe the annual maintenance contracts that they have or any other consulting service that they, I would say, provide. If they are contract-based, we can define those contracts. That way, as I said, the system is highly configurable. And for when we talk about multiple industry verticals, the main, I would say, difference is in revenue and cost. And apart from that, for other expenses and other budgets like balance sheet, CapEx, OpEx, the processes are more or less standard.
Great, thanks for that. So I have Erica asking me, can we use this for project planning?
Yes, we can use this for project planning. As I said, what we need to actually do for project planning is to identify the existing projects, because in case of project planning, we may have projects which stretches across multiple fiscal years. So we start with opening projects which are supposed to be built or maybe completed during the budget year or maybe into the future years. And then by defining spread years, we can, I would say, define the entire life cycle of the project. Okay, maybe it's 1 year, 2 years, because there are some, like we have done some implementation for a company. They are into actually setting up power plants, and each project runs into more than 2 to 3 years. So we have to budget for 3 years. So the year in which the project starts is defined as the budget year, and the next following years are defined as spread years, and we can define as many spread years as possible. And from a revenue recognition point, we can have completed contract basis or you are progress billing, depending on a combination of both. These processes can be mapped into the system.
Okay, Donna wants to know, how do you manage multiple chart of accounts?
Okay, see, what happens is in planning and budgeting, when we set up the application, the PBCS system, we define what we call a budget chart of accounts. So we take the chart of accounts of individual entity and also the measures that the granularity of the measures in which the management would like to see the numbers, and generate a budget chart of accounts and link that and map that to the individual entity chart of accounts. It need not be only the chart of accounts, it can also be to the profit centers, cost centers as defined. And the ETL process takes care of transforming the data from the individual chart of accounts and profit centers, cost centers, however they might have been defined, into the budget chart of accounts, and so that variance analysis can be done and we can also drill down. And in FDME, we also store the source data. So if the user wants to refer to his trial balance as defined in his general ledger system, he can drill down and take a look at that as well.
Okay, Brian is asking, can we use Informatica for ETL?
Yes, we can. See, what happens is Hyperion planning and budgeting, it comes with an embedded ETL, I would say, tool, which is quite powerful, and it speaks, I mean, it's very, very tightly linked to PBCS. But if some companies have a standard ETL, I would say, tool, which they would like to use for all applications. For example, they would like to use Informatica for extraction of data from warehouse or moving data into the warehouse. So we can use Informatica for extraction, and Informatica can be connected to FDME, and the extraction part, after the data is extracted, transformed, the data is passed on to FDME for upload. And if we are, if we are, excuse me, just to add a line, if we are writing back data from the planning budgeting system into the general ledger system for budget control, then FDME can export the data to Informatica to upload into the general ledger system. It's a two-way movement of data. Sorry.
Okay, so that's it for the questions. That wraps up the questions, and we're done here. Does anyone have any more questions? If you want to send them through the chat before we wrap up.
No, I think that about does it, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today. For next steps, for anybody that's on the phone here, for any clients, prospects, any of the Oracle team that may be on, we'll be following up with you directly. We'd love to have some conversations about how PBCS can have an impact on your business, from planning and budgeting to any of the other activities for your finance department that we could assist with. So keep an eye out from Khushbu's email or from her phone. Should be in touch, but in the meantime, our contact information is listed on the screen. Again, thanks so much for the time today. We appreciate you joining the demo. Shaker, great job, and thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.